The rain hammered against the windshield as Adanna Okafor clutched her swollen belly, her face twisted in agony. Another contraction ripped through her body, so violent that she couldn't hold back her scream. She was sprawled on the wet pavement outside their luxury apartment building in Victoria Island, Lagos, her water breaking and mixing with the rainwater pooling beneath her. "Chidi, please," she gasped, reaching toward the man standing in the doorway above her. "The baby is coming now. Please, I'm begging you." Her husband of 6 years, Chidi Okafor, looked down at her with cold eyes she no longer recognized. Behind him, draped in his arm like an expensive accessory, stood Nkechi, his mistress, wearing Adanna's silk robe and a smile that cut deeper than any knife. "You heard what I said, Adanna. Pack your things and leave my house. This is Nkechi's home now." Chidi's voice was ice. "That baby you're carrying? I don't even know if it's mine." Adanna's world spun. 7 hours of labor, and instead of driving her to the hospital, her husband had spent the evening in bed with another woman. When she'd knocked on their bedroom door, begging for help, he'd thrown her clothes into the hallway and told her to get out. "Chidi, we took a DNA test 2 months ago. You know this baby is yours. You saw the results yourself." Tears streamed down her face, mixing with the rain. "How can you do this to me? To your child?" "That test could have been faked," Nkechi interjected sweetly, running her manicured nails down Chidi's chest. "Besides, baby, didn't you say you wanted a fresh start? With me?" Another contraction seized Adanna, this one so powerful she couldn't breathe. She tried to stand, to crawl toward the street where she might find help, but her legs wouldn't cooperate. The pain was blinding, all-consuming. "Security," Chidi called out. "Remove this woman from my property. Now." 2 security guards appeared, their faces conflicted. Everyone in the building knew Mrs. Okafor. They'd watched her pregnancy progress, seen her kind smile every morning as she greeted them. But they also knew who paid their salaries. "Sir, she's in labor," one guard said hesitantly. "Maybe we should call an ambulance at least?" "Did I ask for your opinion, Emeka? Get her out of here, or you're both fired." What Chidi didn't know, what nobody except Adanna's late mother's lawyer knew, was that tucked away in a safety deposit box in a bank across town sat documents that would change everything. Documents proving that Adanna's mother, the woman Chidi had dismissed as a poor village widow, had been the silent majority shareholder in one of West Africa's largest pharmaceutical companies. Documents showing that Adanna had just inherited a fortune worth $20 million. As the security guards reluctantly moved toward her, as another contraction threatened to split her in two, as her husband stood in the doorway with his mistress and watched her suffer, Adanna made herself a promise through the pain. If she survived this night, if her baby survived, they would never need Chidi Okafor again. But first, she had to make it through the next 60 seconds, without losing consciousness. The baby was coming whether anyone helped her or not. And in the distance, headlights appeared through the rain, moving fast toward the apartment building. Someone was coming, but would they arrive in time? The headlights belonged to a black Mercedes that screeched to a halt just feet from where Adanna lay crumpled on the ground. The driver's door flew open, and out stepped Obiora Nwosu, Adanna's older brother, his face a mask of fury. "What in God's name is happening here?" Obiora roared, rushing to his sister's side. He'd been trying to reach Adanna all evening, and when she didn't answer, something told him to drive to her apartment. Now he understood why. "Obiora," Adanna sobbed, gripping his arm. "The baby. It's coming. I know, and I'm here now." Obiora turned his blazing eyes toward Chidi, who had gone pale at the sight of him. You did this to my sister? While she's in labor?" Chidi straightened, trying to maintain his composure. "This is between me and my wife, Obiora. Stay out of it." "Your wife?" Obiora's laugh was bitter as he carefully lifted Adanna into his arms. She was small, but her pregnant belly made her awkward to carry. He managed, driven by rage and protective love. "The wife you threw into the street like garbage? That wife. She's been nothing but trouble," Nkechi chimed in from the doorway. "Always complaining, always needy. Chidi deserves better." Obiora's jaw clenched so tight it was a wonder his teeth didn't crack. And you are? I'm Nkechi Adeyemi, Chidi's new partner. This is my home now. Your home? Obiora shifted Adanna's weight, moving toward his car. We'll see about that. Emeka, Tund, you both witnessed this, correct? You saw Mr. Okafor refuse to help his pregnant wife. The two security guards nodded reluctantly. They knew this testimony might cost them their jobs, but what they'd witnessed tonight sat heavy on their consciences. Good. Remember every detail. You'll be hearing from our lawyers. Obiora carefully placed Adanna in the back seat of his Mercedes. Hold on, Ada. St. Nicholas Hospital is 10 minutes away. You're going to be fine. As Obiora sped away, Adanna's screams filled the car. The contractions were coming faster now, barely 30 seconds apart. Through the pain, she could hear her brother on his phone, calling ahead to the hospital, his voice tight with controlled panic. Yes, emergency. My sister is in active labor. We're 7 minutes out. Please have a team ready. A pause. No, there were complications at home. Her husband refused to bring her in. Adanna felt a strange detachment from her body, as if she were floating above the scene, watching herself suffer. In her mind, she replayed the past 6 years with Chidi. How had she missed the signs? Or had she simply chosen to ignore them? They'd met at a corporate event in Lagos. Chidi was ambitious, charming, working his way up in his father's import business. Adanna had been a project manager at a tech startup, independent and driven. He'd pursued her relentlessly, promising her the world, telling her she was different from other women. The first year of marriage had been beautiful, but after his father died and Chidi took over the company, everything changed. He became obsessed with status, with appearances, with climbing higher in Lagos society. Adanna's modest family background became an embarrassment to him. Her mother's village roots were something to hide, not celebrate. When Nkechi entered the picture, 6 months ago? A year? Adanna realized with crushing clarity that she'd been too trusting, too focused on her pregnancy and preparing for motherhood to see what was happening in her own marriage. We're here, Obiora announced, pulling up to the emergency entrance. Medical staff were already waiting with a wheelchair and gurney. Within minutes, Adanna was in a delivery room, surrounded by nurses and a doctor who moved with efficient calm. The pain was overwhelming, but at least now she had help. She had hope. You're at 8 centimeters, Mrs. Okafor, the doctor said. The baby will be here soon. You're doing wonderfully. Obiora held her hand, wiping her forehead with a cool cloth. Mama would be so proud of you, Ada. You're the strongest person I know. At the mention of their mother, something shifted in Adanna's chest. Her mother, Grace Obi, had died 3 months ago from a sudden heart attack. The grief was still raw, still fresh. But her mother had been strong too. She'd raised 2 children alone after their father died, had built a life for them through sheer determination. What Adanna didn't know yet was that her mother's strength had roots deeper than anyone imagined. That the quiet, humble woman who'd lived simply had been protecting a secret that would soon change everything. One more push, Adanna, the doctor urged. Your baby is almost here. And then, at 11:47 p.m. on that rain-soaked Lagos night, Adanna's daughter entered the world with a healthy, angry cry that filled the delivery room with life and promise. Adanna collapsed back against the pillows, exhausted and exhilarated. Her daughter. Her beautiful, perfect daughter. As the nurses cleaned and wrapped the baby, Adanna felt something solidify inside her. This child would never see her mother treated the way Chidi had treated her tonight. This child would grow up knowing her worth. She's perfect, Ada, Obiora whispered, tears streaming down his face. What will you name her? Chioma, Adanna said firmly. God is good. Because despite everything, despite Chidi, despite the pain, God brought her here safely. But as Adanna held her daughter for the first time, as Chioma's tiny fingers wrapped around her thumb, neither she nor Obiora knew that across town, a lawyer named Barrister Adewale Okoro was preparing documents that would be delivered to Adanna the next morning. Documents that would reveal her mother's secret fortune and transform her from a woman abandoned on the street into one of the wealthiest young women in Nigeria. The real story was just beginning. Before we continue with what happens next, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your country or city in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss what happens to Adanna and baby Chioma. Trust me, you won't want to miss the next chapter. Now, let's see what Chidi does when he finds out what he's really lost. Morning light streamed through the hospital window as Adanna nursed baby Chioma, marveling at how something so beautiful could come from such a horrible night. Obiora had spent the night in the chair beside her bed, refusing to leave his sister and niece alone even for a moment. A soft knock interrupted the peaceful moment. A tall, distinguished man in an expensive navy suit stood in the doorway, carrying a leather briefcase that looked like it cost more than most people's monthly salary. "Mrs. Adanna Okafor?" the man asked politely. "Yes." Adanna adjusted Chioma in her arms, suddenly wary. "My name is Barrister Adewale Okoro. I was your late mother's attorney and financial advisor." He stepped into the room, and Obiora immediately stood, positioning himself protectively between the stranger and his sister. "Our mother's attorney?" Obiora frowned. Mama didn't have an attorney. She lived simply. She had nothing that would require legal counsel. Barrister Okoro's smile was gentle, almost sad. "That's what Grace wanted everyone to believe. May I sit? What I have to tell you will take some time, and I think you'll want to be comfortable for this conversation." Adanna nodded, her curiosity overriding her exhaustion. The lawyer pulled up another chair and opened his briefcase, removing several thick folders. "Your mother, Grace Obi, was an extraordinary woman," he began. "But she was also one of the most private people I've ever known. What I'm about to tell you, she made me swear not to reveal until after her death, and only when the time was right. I believe that time is now." He pulled out a photograph, faded but clear, showing a much younger version of their mother standing outside a large building with a sign that read, "Obi Pharmaceuticals Limited." "That's Mama," Adanna whispered. "But I don't understand. What is Obi Pharmaceuticals?" "It's one of the largest pharmaceutical manufacturing and distribution companies in West Africa," Barrister Okoro explained. "Your mother's father, your grandfather Chief Emeka Obi, founded it in 1975. When he died in 1998, he left 65% of the company's shares to your mother, his only child." The room went completely silent. Even baby Chioma seemed to sense the gravity of the moment and stopped fussing. "That's impossible," Obiora said flatly. "Our mother lived in a modest flat in Suralere. She worked as a schoolteacher. She raised us on a teacher's salary." "She did," the lawyer confirmed, "because that's the life she chose. Your mother watched her own mother become corrupted by wealth, watched family members turn against each other over money. When your father died, Grace made a decision. She would raise you both to value character over cash, integrity over influence. She wanted you to become good people before you became rich people." Barrister Okoro pulled out more documents, spreading them across the hospital bed's rolling table. "Grace placed her shares in a blind trust and appointed me as trustee. The company's profits were reinvested. The board of directors never knew the majority shareholder was living as a school teacher in Lagos. For 27 years, Grace Obi watched her company grow from the shadows." "How much?" Adanna heard herself ask. "How much is it worth?" "As of last quarter's valuation, your mother's 65% stake in Obi Pharmaceuticals is worth approximately $20 million US. He paused, letting the number sink in. "And according to her will, everything goes to you, Adanna. You are now the majority shareholder of Obi Pharmaceuticals Limited." The world tilted. Adanna felt Obiora's hand steady her shoulder as she processed what she was hearing. $20 million. Her mother, the woman who'd mended their clothes instead of buying new ones, who'd saved every naira, who'd taught them that wealth was measured in character, not currency, had been secretly wealthy all along. "Why just Adanna?" Obiora asked, and there was no jealousy in his voice, only curiosity. "Why not split it between us?" "Grace left you $5 million, Obiora, and a letter explaining her reasoning. But the controlling shares go to Adanna because Grace believed her daughter would need it more. She said something to me once that I never understood until yesterday, until I heard what happened to you, Adanna. The lawyer looked at her with kind eyes. She said, "My daughter has a good heart, and the world punishes women with good hearts. When I'm gone, she'll need armor. Money is armor." Tears spilled down Adanna's cheeks. Her mother had known. Somehow, Grace had sensed that Adanna's kindness might be exploited, that her trusting nature might lead her into danger. And she'd prepared a way out. "There's more," Barrister Okoro continued. "The company owns several properties, including a penthouse apartment here in Victoria Island, just 3 blocks from where you were living. It's been maintained but vacant for years, waiting for you. You and baby Chioma can move in immediately if you wish." "What about Chidi?" The name tasted bitter in Adanna's mouth. "We're still legally married. Can he claim any of this?" "That brings me to the second reason I came today." The lawyer's expression hardened. "I heard about what happened last night. The security guards from your building contacted several news outlets, and the story is spreading across Lagos social media. A man throwing his pregnant wife into the street during labor makes for very compelling headlines." He pulled out his phone and showed them. Sure enough, hashtags like "Justice for Adanna" and "Chidi Okafor is a monster" were trending on Nigerian Twitter. Someone had recorded video from their balcony showing Chidi and Nkechi standing in the doorway while Adanna lay on the wet ground. "The court of public opinion has already convicted your husband," Barrister Okoro said. "But more importantly, with witnesses and video evidence of abandonment and cruelty, we can file for divorce immediately and ensure he gets nothing from your inheritance. Your mother's will was very specific. The money is yours alone, protected from any marital claims." Adanna looked down at Chioma, sleeping peacefully in her arms. 24 hours ago, she'd been desperate, broken, thrown away like trash by a man she'd loved. Now she was a mother and a millionaire. The irony was almost too much to process. "I want the divorce filed today," she said firmly. "And I want full custody of Chioma. Chidi proved last night that he's unfit to be a father. Consider it done." Barrister Okoro smiled. "Welcome to your new life, Mrs. Okafor. Though I suspect you'll be going back to Ms. Obi very soon." After the lawyer left, Adanna and Obiora sat in stunned silence. Finally, Obiora started laughing, a sound that began as a chuckle and grew into deep, genuine laughter. "What's funny?" Adanna asked, though she felt a smile tugging at her own lips. "Chidi threw away a $20 million wife for a mistress who probably can't even afford her own rent." Obiora gasped between laughs. "The man is an idiot of truly spectacular proportions." And despite everything, despite the pain and trauma of the previous night, Adanna found herself laughing too. Because her brother was right. Chidi had kicked her out thinking she was worthless, never knowing he was discarding a fortune. The question now was simple. What would she do with her new power? And what would happen when Chidi found out what he'd lost? Those answers were coming sooner than anyone expected. Now I want to ask you something. What would you do if you were in Adanna's position? Would you forgive Chidi? Or would you make him pay for what he did? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And please, if this story is touching your heart, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes the people who hurt us the most end up regretting it the most. Let's see if that's true for Chidi. 3 days later, Adanna stood in the marble lobby of her new penthouse building, Chioma sleeping in a carrier against her chest. The building was called Azure Towers, one of the most exclusive addresses in Victoria Island. The same neighborhood where Chidi had thrown her out, but a world away in terms of luxury. "Welcome home, Ma," the concierge said warmly, handing her a set of keys. "If you need anything at all, day or night, just call down. We're here to serve you." The penthouse was on the 20th floor, and when the elevator doors opened directly into her private foyer, Adanna had to catch her breath. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of Lagos, the Atlantic Ocean glittering in the distance. The interior was modern and elegant, decorated in soft creams and golds, nothing like the gaudy, ostentatious style Chidi had preferred. This was hers. all hers. Obiara had already arranged for movers to collect her personal belongings from Chidi's apartment, her clothes, her books, her mother's photo albums. Everything else she'd left behind without a second thought. She didn't want anything Chidi had touched. Her phone buzzed. Another message from Chidi. He'd been calling and texting nonstop since yesterday, when the divorce papers had been served. Adanna had blocked his number, but he kept calling from different phones, leaving increasingly desperate voicemails. She'd listened to one, just to hear what he had to say. "Adanna, please, we need to talk. I made a mistake. A huge mistake. Nkechi is gone. I sent her away. It's just you and me, baby, like it's supposed to be. Call me back. Please. I love you. I love our daughter. Don't do this to our family." The audacity of it. The sheer nerve. 3 days ago, he'd watched her suffer on the pavement and done nothing. Now that the story had gone viral, now that his reputation was destroyed and business partners were distancing themselves, suddenly he loved her again. Adanna deleted the voicemail without responding. She was settling Chioma into the nursery when her phone rang. Not Chidi this time, but an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Hello. Is this Adanna Obi?" A woman's voice, unfamiliar, speaking Igbo with a thick village accent.
"Yes."
"Who is this?" "My name is Blessing. I'm calling from Enugu. I was your mother's friend, from her village, from before she moved to Lagos." Adanna's heart quickened. Her mother had rarely spoken about her life before Lagos, before marriage. "How can I help you, Auntie Blessing?" "Your mother asked me to call you if anything ever happened to her. She said to wait 3 months, to make sure you'd had time to grieve. Then I was to tell you something important." The woman paused. "She said to tell you about the second account." "What second account?" "Your mother had another bank account, separate from everything else. She kept it at a small bank in Enugu, where no one would think to look. She deposited money there for 30 years, every month without fail. She said it was for emergencies, for protection. She said her daughter might need it someday." Adanna's mind raced. "How much is in this account?" "I don't know the exact amount, but last time she mentioned it, maybe 2 years ago, she said it was over $500,000. She left me the account details to give to you. Are you ready to write them down?" As Adanna scrambled for a pen, she felt a strange mixture of emotions. Her mother had been even more prepared than anyone knew. Grace Obi had built not just one safety net for her daughter, but multiple ones, layered protections against whatever life might bring. After taking down the information, Adanna thanked Blessing and hung up, her mind spinning. 20 million in shares, 500,000 in cash, properties, assets. Her mother had turned herself into a fortress of financial security, all while living like she had nothing. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. When she checked the video intercom, she saw Barrister Okoro standing in her private foyer. "I apologize for the unannounced visit," he said when she opened the door. "But something has come up that requires immediate attention. May I come in?" They sat in the living room, and the lawyer pulled out his tablet. "Chidi Okafor has filed a countersuit. He's claiming that you committed adultery, that baby Chioma isn't his child, and that you're trying to steal his assets through a fraudulent divorce." Adanna felt rage surge through her veins. "That's insane. We have the DNA test proving Chioma is his. And I'm not taking any of his assets. I don't want anything from him. I know, which is why his suit won't stand. But there's something else." Barrister Okoro swiped on his tablet. "He's also filed an emergency petition requesting a portion of your inheritance. He's claiming that since you were married when your mother died, he's entitled to 50% of everything you inherited as community property." "Can he do that?" Adanna's voice was ice. "He can try. But your mother's will was ironclad precisely to prevent this scenario. The inheritance is yours alone, classified as separate property, not marital assets. His petition will be denied. However, the process might be uncomfortable. He'll try to drag you through court, make accusations, damage your reputation to strengthen his position. Let him try." Adanna stood, walking to the window. Lagos sprawled beneath her, Millions of people living their lives, chasing their dreams. Somewhere down there, Chidi was probably in his lawyer's office, scheming, plotting, trying to find a way to profit from the wife he'd discarded. "There's one more thing you should know," Barrister Okoro said quietly. "Nkechi Adeyemi, the mistress? She's pregnant. 4 months along. She's claiming Chidi is the father and demanding child support. She's also filed a suit against him for breach of promise to marry." Adanna turned, surprised to find herself smiling. "So Chidi is being sued by 2 women at the same time?" 3, actually. Another woman came forward yesterday claiming he got her pregnant 6 months ago and abandoned her. "It appears your ex-husband has been very busy." The lawyer's expression was grim. His world is collapsing, Adanna. His business partners are cutting ties, his reputation is destroyed, and now he's facing multiple lawsuits and paternity claims. The man you married no longer exists, if he ever did. Part of Adanna, the part that had loved Chidi, that had built dreams with him, felt a flicker of pity. But then she remembered lying on the wet pavement, begging for help while he stood over her with cold eyes. She remembered Nkechi's cruel smile. She remembered the security guards' conflicted faces as they were ordered to remove a woman in active labor.
No.
She wouldn't waste pity on Chidi Okafor. "Do whatever it takes to protect me and Chioma legally," she told Barrister Okoro. "I want full custody, no visitation rights until he proves he's changed, and I want every legal avenue closed that he might use to access my money."
Can you do that?
"Consider it done." "And Adanna?" The lawyer stood to leave. "Your mother would be very proud of the woman you're becoming. Grace always said that adversity reveals character. Yours is shining through." After he left, Adanna picked up Chioma, holding her daughter close as they looked out over the city. "Your grandmother was a wise woman, little one. She taught your mother that true wealth isn't in bank accounts. It's in knowing your worth and never letting anyone convince you otherwise." Chioma yawned, completely unconcerned with matters of money and revenge. And watching her daughter's peaceful face, Adanna felt something settle inside her. She didn't need revenge. Life itself would be revenge enough. Chidi had made his choices, and now he would live with the consequences. As for Adanna, she had a daughter to raise, a company to learn about, and a future to build. The past was behind her, and it was time to look forward. But just as she was putting Chioma down for a nap, her phone buzzed with a news alert. The headline made her blood run cold. "Breaking. Businessman Chidi Okafor arrested on fraud charges. Millions missing from company accounts." It seemed Chidi's problems were far worse than anyone had imagined. And the story was far from over. The news spread through Lagos like wildfire. Chidi Okafor, the man who'd thrown his pregnant wife into the street, was now in police custody, accused of embezzling 12 million naira from his late father's import company. Investors who'd trusted him, employees who depended on him, all betrayed. Adanna watched the news coverage from her penthouse, Chioma sleeping peacefully in her arms. The man being led away in handcuffs bore little resemblance to the confident, charismatic person she'd married. This Chidi looked hollow, desperate, his expensive suit rumpled, his eyes darting like a trapped animal. "The charges are serious," the news anchor reported. According to the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Mr. Okafor systematically siphoned money from Okafor imports over the past 18 months, using shell companies to hide the transactions. The missing funds were allegedly spent on luxury purchases, gambling, and maintaining relationships with multiple women. Obiora had come over to watch the news with his sister. He shook his head in disgust. 18 months. That means he was stealing while you were pregnant, while you were planning for your baby, while he was pretending everything was fine. He was living a completely different life, Adanna said softly. How did I not see it? Because you're a good person who assumes other people are good too, Obiora replied. That's not a weakness, Ada. That's who you are. But now you know better. Adanna's phone rang. It was Barrister Okoro. I assume you've seen the news, he said without preamble. This changes everything regarding your divorce proceedings. With Chidi facing criminal charges, we can expedite everything. The court will be far more sympathetic to your case now. I don't want sympathy, Adanna said firmly. I want justice. I want full custody of Chioma, zero access to my inheritance, and I want it all documented that he abandoned us. Not because I need the validation, but because Chioma deserves to know the truth when she's older. Understood. I'll push for an emergency hearing next week. With Chidi in custody and his assets frozen pending the fraud investigation, he won't be able to mount much of a defense. After the call ended, Adanna felt strangely empty. She'd imagined this moment, imagined Chidi's downfall, but now that it was happening, there was no satisfaction in it. Only a deep sadness for the years wasted, the trust betrayed, the future destroyed. Don't feel bad for him, Obiora said, reading her expression. He made his choices. Every single one of them. I know. I just keep thinking about the man I thought I married. Was any of it real? Did he ever actually love me? Maybe he did, in his own broken way. But love isn't enough if it's not backed by character, by integrity. Mama taught us that. The mention of their mother brought fresh tears to Adanna's eyes. I miss her so much, Obi. I wish she was here to meet Chioma. I wish I could thank her for everything she did to protect me. She knew, Obiora said gently. Somehow, she knew you'd need protecting. That's why she built all those safeguards. 2 days later, Adanna received an unexpected visitor. The concierge called up, sounding uncertain. Ma, there's a woman here to see you. She says her name is Nkechi Adeyemi. Should I send her away? Adanna's first instinct was to say yes, to refuse to see the woman who'd helped destroy her marriage. But curiosity won out. Send her up. But stay alert in case I need security. When the elevator doors opened, Nkechi looked nothing like the confident, smirking woman from that rainy night. Her designer clothes were gone, replaced by simple jeans and a t-shirt. Her elaborate weave had been removed, showing her natural hair cropped short. And most noticeably, her small baby bump was visible. I know you have no reason to listen to me, Nkechi began, standing awkwardly in the foyer. But I need to say something. I need you to hear the truth. Adanna crossed her arms, saying nothing. Chidi told me you were separated, Nkechi continued, her voice shaking. He said you'd been living apart for months, that the marriage was over, that the baby might not even be his. He said you'd cheated on him. I believed every word because I wanted to, because he was successful and charming, and I thought he could give me the life I'd always dreamed of. And now... Adanna's voice was cold. Now I know I was just another victim. He got me pregnant and dumped me the moment the arrest happened. He told me to get rid of the baby, said he couldn't afford child support, that I was on my own. Tears streamed down Nkechi's face. I destroyed your marriage for a man who never cared about either of us. He used us both. You're right. He did use us both. But you chose to believe his lies. You chose to stand in that doorway and smile while I suffered on the ground. Adanna's anger was controlled, precise. So while I understand you were deceived, I can't forgive what you did. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Nkechi nodded, wiping her eyes. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know the truth. And I wanted to warn you. Chidi's lawyer contacted me. They want me to testify against you in court, to say that you were an unfit wife, that you drove Chidi to infidelity. They're offering to pay my medical bills for the baby if I cooperate. And what did you tell them? I told them to go to hell. Nkechi's voice hardened. I won't lie for him anymore. If you need me to testify about what really happened, about the lies he told me, I will. It's the least I can do. After Nkechi left, Adanna sat in silence, processing everything. The simple narrative she'd built in her mind, villain and victim, good and evil, was becoming more complicated. Nkechi wasn't innocent, but she wasn't the sole architect of Adanna's pain either. Chidi had manipulated them both, played them against each other, all while stealing money and living a double life. That evening, Barrister Okoro called with news. The emergency custody hearing is scheduled for tomorrow morning. Chidi is being transported from detention to appear in court. Are you ready for this? I'm ready, Adanna said, looking at Chioma sleeping in her crib. I'm fighting for my daughter's future. I've never been more ready for anything in my life. The next morning, Adanna walked into the Lagos High Court wearing a simple but elegant navy dress, her hair pulled back, no jewelry except her mother's small gold cross necklace. She wanted to look like what she was, a mother protecting her child, not a wealthy woman flaunting her money. Chidi was brought in wearing prison clothes, handcuffed, looking haggard and desperate. When his eyes found hers across the courtroom, she saw him mouth the words, "I'm sorry." But sorry wasn't enough. Sorry didn't erase the trauma, didn't undo the abandonment, didn't restore the trust shattered beyond repair. The hearing lasted 3 hours. Adanna's lawyer presented video evidence, witness testimony from the security guards, medical records showing the trauma she'd endured. Chidi's lawyer tried to paint him as a man driven to desperation by a failing marriage, but every argument fell flat against the weight of evidence. In the end, the judge's ruling was swift and decisive. Full custody granted to Mrs. Adanna Obi. Mr. Chidi Okafor's parental rights are suspended pending completion of mandatory counseling and proof of rehabilitation. He is ordered to pay child support of 50,000 naira per month, though enforcement is suspended until his criminal matters are resolved. This court finds that Mr. Okafor demonstrated willful abandonment and endangerment of both mother and child. His behavior was reprehensible and cannot be tolerated. As the gavel fell, Adanna felt a weight lift from her shoulders. It was over. She was free. Walking out of the courthouse, reporters swarmed her, shouting questions. But Adanna held her head high, issued a brief statement thanking the court, and climbed into the car where Obiora waited with baby Chioma. "How does it feel?" her brother asked. "Like I can finally breathe," Adanna replied, taking her daughter into her arms. "Like we can finally move forward." But as they drove away from the courthouse, Adanna didn't see the figure watching from across the street. A woman in sunglasses, standing beside an expensive car, observing everything with calculated interest. The woman pulled out her phone and made a call. "She's even more impressive than I expected. I think it's time we meet properly. Set up the introduction for next week." Adanna's new life was just beginning, and with it would come opportunities, challenges, and revelations she never could have imagined. The question wasn't whether she was ready, it was whether the world was ready for her. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself against someone who tried to tear you down? How did it feel when you finally won? Share your stories in the comments below. And if Adanna's journey is inspiring you, make sure you're subscribed to this channel because her story is about to take a turn nobody saw coming. Hit that like button if you're Team Adanna all the way, and let's see what happens next. 1 week after the custody hearing, Adanna received an invitation that would change everything. It arrived by courier in a cream envelope with elegant gold lettering, hand-delivered to her penthouse. "Ms. Adanna Obi, you are cordially invited to attend a private dinner meeting with Mrs. Amara Namdi, chairwoman of the board, Obi Pharmaceuticals Limited. Thursday, 7 p.m., the Wheatbaker Hotel, Ikoyi." Adanna stared at the invitation, her heart racing. Amara Namdi was a legend in Nigerian business circles, a self-made billionaire who'd built a telecommunications empire before diversifying into pharmaceuticals, real estate, and technology. She was known for being brilliant, ruthless when necessary, and fiercely protective of women in business. But why would she want to meet with Adanna? "This is huge," Obiora said when she showed him the invitation. "Amara Namdi doesn't meet with just anyone. She must know about your inheritance, about the shares in Obi Pharmaceuticals." "But I'm just a new shareholder. I don't know anything about running a pharmaceutical company. What could she possibly want from me?" Only one way to find out. Thursday evening arrived, too quickly. Adanna wore a sophisticated black dress that her mother had bought her years ago for a corporate event. Looking at herself in the mirror, she saw Grace's strength in her own eyes, her mother's determination in the set of her jaw. The Wheatbaker was one of Lagos's most exclusive hotels. Adanna was escorted to a private dining room where Amara Namdi waited. The woman was striking, mid-50s, tall and regal, her silver-streaked hair styled in elegant locks, wearing a custom-made traditional outfit in deep purple that probably cost more than a car. "Adanna Obi," Amara said warmly, standing to embrace her. "You look so much like your mother." Grace was one of my dearest friends. Adanna froze. You knew my mother? We were roommates at the University of Lagos many years ago. I was studying business, she was studying education. We were both young, ambitious, trying to make our way in a world that didn't always make space for women like us. Amara gestured to the seats. Please sit. We have much to discuss. Over an exquisite meal, Amara told stories about Grace that Adanna had never heard. Her mother in university, brilliant and driven but also kind, always helping other students who struggled. Her mother falling in love with Adanna's father, a gentle man who supported her dreams. Her mother's devastation when her own father, Chief Emeka Obi, tried to force her into an arranged marriage to expand the family business. Your mother refused, Amara explained. She chose love over obligation, chose your father over wealth. Chief Obi was furious. He cut her off completely, told her she was no longer his daughter. That's why you grew up not knowing your grandfather's family, not knowing about the pharmaceutical empire. But Mama inherited the company's shares, Adanna said, confused.
How?
Because Chief Obi, for all his faults, was bound by tradition. Grace was his only child, and according to their village customs and his own father's will, the business had to pass to her. He couldn't disinherit her legally, no matter how much he wanted to. So when he died in 1998, Grace became the majority shareholder, whether she wanted it or not. Amara took a sip of wine, her eyes distant with memory. Your mother came to me, terrified. She'd just lost her father to that car accident. She had 2 young children to raise. And suddenly, she owned 65% of a company worth millions. She was convinced the wealth would corrupt her, corrupt you and Obiora. She'd seen what money did to her own family. So she hid it, Adanna whispered. She pretended she had nothing. She created a trust, appointed Barrister Okoro as trustee, and made me promise to watch over the company from the shadows. I joined Obi Pharmaceuticals' board the next year. For 27 years, I've been protecting your mother's investment, making sure the company grew strong and ethical, waiting for the day you'd be ready to claim your inheritance. Adanna felt tears prick her eyes. Why are you telling me this now? Because you're ready, Amara said simply. I've been watching you, Adanna. The way you handled Chidi's betrayal, the way you fought for your daughter, the dignity you maintained even when the world was watching. You have your mother's strength and something else. You have fire that Grace tried to suppress in herself. You're not afraid of wealth or power. You understand that money is a tool, not a master. What are you asking me? Amara leaned forward, her eyes intense. I'm asking you to take your seat on the board of Obi Pharmaceuticals. Not as a silent shareholder, but as an active leader. The company your grandfather built, the company your mother protected, it's time for it to have an Obi at the helm again. I'll mentor you, teach you everything you need to know. But the vision, the direction, that has to come from you. Adanna's mind reeled. 3 weeks ago, she'd been a woman with nothing, thrown away and forgotten. Now she was being offered a chance to run a multi-million-dollar company. I don't have a business degree, she protested. I was a project manager at a tech startup. I know nothing about pharmaceuticals. You don't need to know about pharmaceuticals yet. You need to know about people, about leadership, about vision. Those things can't be taught in business school. You either have them or you don't. Amara smiled. And you have them, Adanna. I saw it in the courtroom last week. The way you carried yourself, the way you spoke truth to power. That's the kind of leader this company needs. Can I think about it? Of course. But while you're thinking, let me show you something. Amara pulled out her tablet and opened a presentation. This is Project Maternal Hope. It's a proposal that's been sitting on my desk for 6 months, waiting for the right champion. The presentation outlined a program to provide free maternal health care and emergency obstetric services to low-income women across Nigeria. Mobile clinics, trained midwives, emergency transport systems, everything designed to ensure that no woman would ever have to suffer through labor alone and helpless. Everything designed to prevent what had happened to Adanna. The board rejected this proposal, Amara explained. They said it wasn't profitable enough, that our resources should go toward projects with better returns. But with your 65% controlling vote, you could override them. You could make this happen. Adanna stared at the images on the screen. Pregnant women in villages with no hospitals nearby, mothers who'd lost babies because they couldn't reach medical care in time, families devastated by preventable maternal deaths. She thought about lying on that wet pavement, contractions tearing through her, thinking she might die there alone. She thought about baby Chioma, who'd nearly been born in the street because her father valued his mistress more than his wife's life. How much would it cost? She asked quietly. Initial investment of 200 million naira. But Adanna, this isn't about money. This is about legacy. What do you want her daughter to remember? That her mother inherited wealth, or that her mother used that wealth to save lives? The answer was obvious. I'll do it, Adanna said, her voice steady and sure. I'll join the board. I'll champion Project Maternal Hope. And I'll learn everything I need to know to honor my mother's legacy. Amara's smile was radiant. Your mother would be so proud. Welcome to Obi Pharmaceuticals, Adanna. Welcome to your destiny. They talked for hours more, discussing strategy, timelines, challenges. When Adanna finally left the hotel near midnight, her head was spinning, but her heart was clear. This was what Grace had been preparing her for. Not just wealth, but purpose. Not just power, but responsibility. The next morning, Adanna was feeding Chioma breakfast when her phone rang. It was a number she didn't recognize, but the area code was from Kirikiri Maximum Security Prison. Against her better judgment, she answered. Adanna. Chidi's voice was broken, desperate. Please don't hang up. Please just listen. You have 60 seconds. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. I know what I did was unforgivable. But I need you to know, I never stopped loving you. I was weak, I was stupid, I was seduced by greed and ego and all the worst parts of myself. But losing you, losing Chioma, it's destroyed me. I wake up every day in this cell, and I see your face on that pavement, and I hate myself more than I ever thought possible. Adanna said nothing, just listened. I heard about your inheritance, Chidi continued. Everyone in Lagos is talking about it. And I want you to know, I'm dropping all my legal claims. The countersuit, the petition for your money, all of it. I'm withdrawing everything. You'll never hear from my lawyers again. Why? Adanna asked, genuinely curious. Because it's what I should have done from the beginning. Because you deserve peace. Because maybe, if I do this one right thing, God might forgive me even if you never can. His voice cracked. I'm sorry, Adanna. For everything. I hope someday Chioma will know that her father, for all his failures, loved her mother. Even if I showed it in the worst possible way. The line went dead. Adanna sat in silence, Chioma babbling happily in her high chair, completely unaware of the complex emotions swirling through her mother. Part of Adanna wanted to feel triumph, vindication. But mostly she just felt tired. Tired of anger, tired of pain, tired of looking backward. It was time to look forward. That afternoon, Barrister Okoro called to confirm that Chidi had indeed withdrawn all legal actions against her. The divorce would proceed uncontested. Within a month, she would be legally free. There's one more thing, the lawyer said. Chidi's lawyer also sent over documents signing away his parental rights. He's giving you full and permanent custody of Chioma with no strings attached. He doesn't want visitation, doesn't want updates, nothing. He's walking away completely. Adanna looked at her daughter, her beautiful, perfect daughter, and felt a complex mix of relief and sadness. Chioma would grow up without a father, but she would grow up surrounded by love, protected by wealth, empowered by legacy. Thank you, Adanna told the lawyer, for everything. As she hung up, Obiora arrived with takeout food and news. Have you seen social media? The story about you joining Obi Pharmaceuticals is everywhere. People are calling you the Phoenix of Lagos, rising from the ashes of betrayal to claim your destiny. That's dramatic, Adanna laughed. That's Lagos, Obiora grinned. But seriously, Ada, I'm so proud of you. Mama would be proud too. You took the worst thing that ever happened to you and turned it into fuel for something beautiful. That night, after Obiora left and Chioma was sleeping, Adanna stood at her penthouse window, looking out over Lagos. The city glittered with a million lights, each one representing a life, a story, a struggle. Somewhere down there, Chidi was in a prison cell, living with his choices. Somewhere down there, Nkechi was preparing to raise a child alone. Somewhere down there, thousands of pregnant women were hoping for safe deliveries, praying they wouldn't face what Adanna had faced. And here, 20 floors above it all, Adanna Obi held her daughter and made a silent promise. She would use her wealth wisely. She would honor her mother's legacy. She would build something that mattered, something that lasted, something that would make the world better for Chioma and for all the daughters who came after. The story that began with a woman broken on wet pavement was becoming a story of transformation, redemption, and purpose. But was it really over? Or was this just the beginning of something even bigger? 6 months had passed since that rainy night that changed everything. Adanna stood at the podium in the grand ballroom of the Eco Hotel and Suites, facing an audience of over 500 people, business leaders, government officials, healthcare workers, and journalists. Behind her, a massive screen displayed the logo for Project Maternal Hope. Baby Chioma sat in the front row with Obiora, now 7 months old, wearing a tiny traditional outfit that matched her mother's elegant wrapper and blouse. The baby gurgled happily, oblivious to the magnitude of the moment. 6 months ago, I was a woman who had lost everything, Adanna began, her voice steady and clear. I was thrown away, discarded, treated as worthless by someone who was supposed to love me. I gave birth to my daughter not in a hospital surrounded by care, but on the street in the rain, abandoned and alone. The audience was silent, hanging on every word. But I learned something that night. I learned that our lowest moments don't define us. How we rise from them does. I learned that sometimes God allows us to be broken so He can rebuild us into something stronger, something more purposeful than we ever imagined. She clicked to the next slide, showing images of the first Project Maternal Hope mobile clinic. Today, I'm proud to announce that Obi Pharmaceuticals has launched 20 mobile maternal health clinics across Lagos, Ogun, Oyo, Enugu, and River states. These clinics provide free prenatal care, emergency obstetric services, and postnatal support to women who cannot afford or access traditional healthcare. The next slide showed statistics. In our first 6 months, we've served over 8,000 women. We've safely delivered 347 babies. We've transported 112 women experiencing emergency complications to hospitals in time to save their lives and their children's lives. Applause erupted through the ballroom, but Adanna held up her hand. She wasn't finished. We've also established an emergency hotline, 0800 Mama Help, that any pregnant woman in Nigeria can call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If you're in labor and need help, if you're experiencing complications, if you're scared and alone, you call that number, and we will come for you. We will not let you suffer alone. The applause was thunderous now. Adanna saw tears on many faces in the audience. She saw Obiora wiping his eyes, holding Chioma close. But this is just the beginning, Adanna continued. With the support of our board chair, Mrs. Amara Namdi, and our incredible team at Obi Pharmaceuticals, we're expanding. By this time next year, we'll have clinics in all 36 Nigerian states. We're partnering with governments in Ghana, Kenya, and South Africa to bring this model across the continent. Because no woman anywhere should have to face what I faced. She paused, gathering her emotions. My mother, Grace Obi, spent her life protecting her children from the corrupting influence of wealth. She taught us that money without purpose is meaningless. She taught us that true wealth is measured in the lives we touch, the people we help, the legacy we leave behind. The screen behind her changed to show a photograph of Grace, young and smiling, standing outside Obi Pharmaceuticals in the 1990s. Mama, this is for you, Adanna said softly, looking at the image. You gave me the armor I needed to survive. Now I'm using it to protect others. I hope I'm making you proud. As the formal presentation concluded and the crowd rose in a standing ovation, Adanna felt a peace she hadn't known in years. This was what her suffering had been for. This was the purpose in the pain. After the event, as she mingled with guests, a familiar face appeared in the crowd. Nkechi, now heavily pregnant, approached hesitantly. "I wasn't sure if I should come," Nkechi said quietly, "but I wanted you to see what you inspired." She handed Adanna a business card. Nkechi Adeyemi, founder, Second Chances Women's Shelter. "I'm opening a shelter for women who've been deceived and abandoned by men who promised them the world. I'm using my story, my mistakes, to help other women avoid the same traps. To help them see the red flags I ignored." Adanna studied the card, then looked at Nkechi, really looked at her. She saw a woman transformed by hardship, humbled by experience, trying to make amends for her role in someone else's pain. "This is good work," Adanna said finally. "Important work. If you ever need support or resources, Project Maternal Hope would be honored to partner with you." Nkechi's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. I don't deserve your kindness, but thank you." "We all deserve second chances," Adanna said. "That's what I learned from all of this. Redemption is possible for anyone willing to do the work." Later that evening, back in her penthouse, Adanna received a letter. It had been forwarded from Kirikiri prison, but the sender wasn't Chidi. It was from one of his cellmates, a man named Tund, who wrote to say that Chidi had died 3 days earlier. "He had a heart attack in his sleep," the letter explained. "The doctors said the stress, the guilt, the shame, it all just overwhelmed his body. Before he died, he wrote letters to you and to his daughter. The prison is holding them until you're ready to receive them. He also asked me to tell you that his final thoughts were of gratitude. He said you could have destroyed him completely, but instead you showed him mercy by simply letting him go. He said that mercy haunted him more than revenge ever could have, and in that haunting, he finally understood what love actually meant." Adanna sat in silence, the letter trembling in her hands. Chidi was gone. The man who'd given her Chioma, who'd broken her heart, who'd taught her what she would never accept again, gone at 42 years old, his life cut short by the weight of his own choices. She felt no triumph, no vindication. Only a profound sadness for a life wasted, for a potential unfulfilled, for a man who'd learned his lessons too late. "Should I read his letters?" she asked Obiora when he came by later. "That's up to you, Ada. But maybe not today. Maybe not for a long time. Grieve if you need to, then keep moving forward. That's what you do best." That night, Adanna held Chioma close, rocking her to sleep as she had every night since her daughter was born. She sang the same lullabies her mother had sung to her, the same songs in Igbo that had comforted her through childhood. "You'll never know your father," Adanna whispered to her sleeping daughter. "But you'll know his story. You'll know that people make mistakes, that choices have consequences, that sometimes loving someone isn't enough if you don't respect them. You'll learn from his failures, so you never repeat them." She kissed Chioma's forehead. "And you'll know your grandmother's story, too. You'll know that Grace Obi was a warrior who fought invisible battles, who built invisible fortresses, who loved you before you were born. You'll know that strength isn't about never falling down, it's about always getting back up." The months that followed were filled with growth and purpose. Project Maternal Hope expanded faster than anyone had predicted, saving lives daily across West Africa. Adanna threw herself into learning every aspect of OB Pharmaceuticals, attending board meetings, visiting factories, understanding supply chains. Under Amara's mentorship, she discovered she had a gift for business, for seeing opportunities others missed, for leading with both compassion and strength. The media dubbed her Nigeria's comeback queen, but Adanna never forgot where she came from. She visited the security guards, Emeka and Tund, who'd witnessed her worst night, and offered them better-paying positions managing security at OB Pharmaceuticals facilities. She donated to schools in her mother's village, established scholarships in Grace's name, ensured her mother's legacy lived beyond business and wealth. On Chioma's first birthday, Adanna organized a massive celebration at the Lagos Children's Hospital. Every child in the pediatric ward received gifts, Every family received support, and Adanna announced a new initiative, the Grace Obi Foundation for Women and Children, dedicated to fighting poverty, supporting education, and protecting vulnerable mothers. "My daughter will grow up knowing that privilege comes with responsibility," Adanna told the gathered press. "That wealth is a tool for building, not just for having. That being blessed means being a blessing to others." As the party wound down and Chioma smashed her birthday cake with gleeful abandon, Amara pulled Adanna aside. "I have something to tell you," the older woman said, her eyes twinkling. "The International Pharmaceutical Association has nominated you for their Emerging Leader Award. At 32 years old, after only 8 months in the industry, you're being recognized as one of the most innovative voices in global healthcare." Adanna was speechless. "Your mother would burst with pride," Amara continued. "Grace spent her whole life hiding her light. But you, Adanna, you're letting yours shine, and it's illuminating the path for so many others." That night, after all the guests had left and Chioma was sleeping peacefully in her crib, Adanna finally opened the letters from Chidi. There were 2, one for her, one for Chioma to read when she was older. The letter to Adanna was raw, honest, filled with remorse and self-awareness that had come too late. He took responsibility for everything, asked for no forgiveness, simply acknowledged the pain he'd caused and the opportunities he'd wasted. He ended with a single request: "Tell our daughter that her father's greatest achievement was being part of creating her. Tell her that even monsters can make miracles." The letter to Chioma was simpler, sadder, a father's apology to a daughter he would never know, explaining his failures in hopes she might learn from them, expressing a love he'd never had the chance to show. Adanna placed both letters in a safe deposit box. Someday, when Chioma was old enough to understand complexity and nuance, when she could process the story of her parents' marriage without being damaged by it, Adanna would give her these letters. But not yet. Not for many years. For now, Chioma would know only love, only security, only the knowledge that she was wanted and valued and cherished beyond measure. Standing at her window one last time, looking out over Lagos as the sun rose on a new day, Adanna reflected on her journey. From abandonment to empowerment. From victim to victor. From a woman thrown away to a woman building an empire of compassion. The story that began with rain and pain had become a story of purpose and power. And it was far from over. With every clinic opened, every life saved, every woman helped, Adanna was rewriting not just her own narrative, but the narrative for countless others. She'd been kicked out in labor, abandoned at her lowest moment, treated as worthless by the man who should have protected her. But in that darkness, she discovered a light within herself that no one could extinguish. She discovered that her value wasn't determined by how others treated her, but by how she chose to rise after falling. And rise she did. Phoenix of Lagos. Comeback queen. Champion for the vulnerable. But more than any title, more than any accolade, Adanna Obi was simply a woman who'd survived the unthinkable and chose to transform her suffering into service. As baby Chioma woke and called for her mother, Adanna smiled. The past was written, but the future was still being created, one choice at a time, one life saved at a time, one woman empowered at a time. This was her legacy. This was her mother's legacy. This was the inheritance that truly mattered. And it was worth more than $20 million could ever measure. Thank you so much for watching this incredible journey with us. Adanna's story reminds us that our darkest moments can become the foundation for our greatest triumphs. If this story touched your heart, moved you, or taught you something valuable, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring African stories. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that their story isn't over, that redemption is possible, that strength can be found in the breaking. Drop a comment telling us what lesson you're taking from Adanna's journey. Remember, your worth is not determined by how others treat you, but by how you choose to rise. Until next time, keep believing in second chances, keep fighting for what matters, and keep shining your light into the darkness. God bless you all.